Record. Mic trigger. Button.
I thought we'd actually get back to brass tacks and actually do a Driving Your Own Vision episode, as painful as they are. Because I know a lot of you are going, oh, they're not painful. Well, you try doing them. There you go. That's what I've got to say about that. And while we're on the note of this course, just to be sure that we're all on the right page, that we're all sitting on the right page, right? I kind of want to go back, not back to the beginning, not sort of that far back, but kind of back enough to go forward. Now, tonight's episode is very much going back to the beginning, going back to the grassroots. Because tonight is all about it's all about knowing what the vision is, or what the future is for the vision. Now, when we started this, we talked about NLP. And we kind of understand that NLP deals with how the mind processes things. You know, how people deal with process. Now, process is a big word. We've talked about this in our Underground series, so a lot of people have come from there. If they go to this series and watch this series, you'll understand what the process is. But for those that don't, right, process is not a mainstream word. Process isn't a mainstream word, right? Change is a mainstream word, right? The mainstream is stuck in a circle, stuck in a spiral circle of trying to move on, but then they keep moving back because they see a problem. So to fix the problem, they've got to go back to the past somewhere, in the past, to try and fix that problem. Now, instead of retracing the steps, like 12 or 13 steps, they seem to go and retrace a mile, right? So instead of looking back 9 or 10 years, they'll look 20, 30 years. And yeah, there's a lot of nostalgia which we get stuck in, but instead of getting stuck in all the bullshit that's happened, right? Why not try and go forward? Try and go, okay, 12 months ago, we were this problem. And that goes with everything. Strangely enough, I'm starting new eating habits. But again, you won't believe me, so I have to prove it. But again, that's just an example. And I couldn't remember what I did 2 years ago, but I've looked back and thought, holy crumbs, I've made a massive mistake. Right? Now, in business, another thing that happened was I said I was going to do YouTube every day. And I'm starting this week, like, massive sacrifices happen through, okay, I'm doing the radio, I'm doing 2 radio shows now. I've got 2 companies. Some massive sacrifices have to happen. You know? In order for all that to happen. And I have to live those sacrifices. And that's what drives my future. This is a note to self, but I think you have to help yourself to help others. That's what I believe. I am not a teacher. I'm not a teacher, by the way. A lot of people have watched a couple of videos that I've just done, like tutorials, and they go, wow, fantastic, Stephen, you're teaching us something. Well, actually, I'm showing you. I'm not teaching you, I'm showing you, right? When you come to my channel and I show you something, you know, you've got to understand that I'm going to make mistakes along the way. That's when we do programming. I've not got a series yet, but, you know, I think kind of just showing people how to do things, and that'll kind of, you know, that'll kind of show people. But getting back to this whole thing, this whole series, right? I did it as a business series, and it still is a business series. But you have to understand what we're talking about, right? You all want change. Everybody wants change. But then we hold back. Why do we hold back? Because we're humans. Human beings hold back because they want... because they... yeah.
Monday the 11:03 p.m.
Humans hold back because that's what we do. We're human beings, we hold back, we can't change. We don't change because we hold back and we go to the past. And instead of looking into the past, we go to the past. Hey, we go to the past. But the past isn't a great resource. No, in actual fact, the past is actually just a pile of bullshit that we've done before. Where do we learn? Well, this is what you do, right? You take from the bullshit, like a virus, right? You take all the good stuff from the bullshit, and then you move on, right? And this is where process happens. You go back to the nest, whether that be where you lived before, where you went to school, all that kind of stuff. Maybe just, I mean, like, we'd look at the a syndicate press, like, I've had to go back to the old offices there. You know? Stuff like that. Arnside Road. Anyway. You look to the past and you take the stuff that you've learned from it, and hopefully you have learned, and you move on. You go to the future. You go to where you're going. You know, you've taken from the nest. Now it's time to move on. You've taken from the cocoon. Now you're the butterfly. You know, you've flown back. Now it's time to fly on. And hopefully you've created chaos along the way, whether that's a message you found from somewhere, whether that's creating more chaos. Chaos is good. Chaos is what we need, right? Chaos may be, maybe something's happening. You don't want that thing to happen. How do you stop that thing from happening? You piss on the resistance. Actually, no. You spit on the resistance. There you go. Yeah, you spit, because I was watching an interview with Johnny Rotten, and he said that John Lydon to everybody else, and he said that spitting is making disease or spreading disease, and a lot of the undesirables, as a lot of people put it, or as your mum and dad will put it, that's what they do. They spit on something. Now, undesirable or desirable, you have to learn that the resistance is what you have been brought up in. You've been brought to be resistant to change, right? Resistance and change are both a circle, right? And the more you try to change, the more you're still the same. That sounds like a circle. Can you picture a circle in your head, right? Resistance, change, being the same, not moving on, getting back. You try to go forward, but you're going back, and then you're going forward, and every time you go forward, you go back and you're stuck in a loop. So you see what I'm saying? When you're going forward, don't look back. Don't look back, right? When you're going forward, be radical, right? That's another underground word. This is like being the underground series of this, right? I mean, goodness grief, the hippies, the druids, the gypsies, the traveling folk, they taught us all this, right? See, the mainstream, they teach you to look back. You must look back to the past to learn of the future. No, not necessarily. The past is good for nostalgia. That's all it's good for, right? Everything else, no. You take the lessons and then you say, right, okay, well, we're going to move on. This is what we did, right? Because if, say, for example, you're traveling and you look to the past all the time, that's going to affect your traveling. That's going to make the road rougher and tougher. It's going to make life rougher and tougher. Now, life is rougher and tougher, but the future, without looking back and looking on and looking forward, helps you. It helps you deal with change. It doesn't mean to say that change is a scary thing, because it is. Because it's like stepping off the curb into the unknown. But there's something good about the unknown that's amazing. And it's like going on a trip, right? A psychedelic trip, right? It's like a psychedelic trip, but without the LSD involved. And that, my friends, is an introduction to NLP. It's I haven't gone on speaking about the brain acting as a computer. In fact, listening to Timothy O'Leary is Timothy O'Leary is the butterfly, but he taught the mainstream, right? He broke everything down for the mainstream because Aleister Crowley was all like old school kind of, he was like the Genesis and, not Genesis, Exodus, and then sort of like Timothy O'Leary was like the Genesis. I think Timothy O'Leary is an amazing guy on so many levels. And his message is that we should not, people should not use drugs just for the sake of using drugs. They should use experiences, which is what I knew all along, by the way. But he was talking about computers, about brains processing, whatever. And if we followed Timothy O'Leary's way, everybody would have better mental health I mean, we say, we talk about spiritualism and how that's better for your mental health. You know, imagine innovation, creation, everything we teach. In fact, if you watch our imagination spiritualization series, which we're putting together, you'll learn in that how important imagination, those things are for your mental health. You know, imagination is a great tool. Innovation is a great tool. Spiritualization is a great tool. They all blend. They all work together. So I'm going to say this, right? Here's another thing. Stop relying on other people for your feelings. Because it doesn't make your mental health better. Yeah, we get upset, we get happy sometimes, we get sad sometimes. But here's the thing, you've got to go up to come down. I say this to a lot of people. And I was taught this in our men's group. I was taught this. And I used it. Because, yeah, come downs are bad. But if you're stuck on a high all the time, you're never going to come down. You're never, ever going to come down. Never. Never, ever, ever. Or when you do have a bad day, it will be a bad day. You know? Take that into context. And I'm going to say this, right? The people who are up there, it's not like they don't feel sadness, and it's not like the people down there feel happiness. No, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. The people down there, when they feel happiness, it's like, how can I explain it? It's like a rainbow in the distance. They understand what it is and work out what it is. You feel lethargic and that. And I would say that it's normal. You know, normal, by the way, is also a circle, a round word. When I say, you know, about being a circle, you know, mainstream media, mainstream thinking, just all of that doesn't, you know, we taught underground thinking to a lot of people during then and now, and we feel that it's good to have your own mind. It's good, you know, it's good for the goose, but not necessarily good for the gander. And what's good for the gander is not necessarily what's good for the goose. That's what I always state. But yeah, we're like, you know, we should be responsible for our own emotions, because, you know, if we get sad, we should be allowed to be sad, but we should learn to be alone. I know you want someone's affection and that, but you have to sort of know that you have to sort of struggle in a way. It's a weird one. It's not what a lot of mental health professionals teach, because mental health professionals would rather that they be responsible for your feelings, and that's not good. That's not good for anyone. That's not even good for. Anyway, moving on. You have to be the programmer, and you have to be the one that programs you. Because once you've become the butterfly, you have to understand you're soaring through the air, and all of a sudden you stumble on something. Well, work around what suddenly you've stumbled on something good. You take it to your community, or you build a new community, but you have to keep moving. Yeah? Because if you don't, everyone's going to be stood at a standstill. And we have to understand, first of all, these emotions and feelings, the brain understands language. The brain understands, right, okay, when someone gets pissed off, that's the language they speak when they're pissed off. So the brain has to understand, right, how's it going to resolve this? Right, they're pissed off. That's good. It's, it's a way of them dealing with a situation.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Button. Mic lock. Mic lock. Finish recording. Button. Double tap.
So,
mic lock. Button. Is on. Double tap.
So obviously having your own mind, and understanding that you can program your own feelings, you have to understand the next phase, right? The next step, which is to know then that you are to know that there are things that are happening. There are things that are there are things that are that you need to program before you even set them in stone. Now, NLP stands for linguistic language programming. So it's taking the language that you feel. If you're pissed off, you take the language, and it's all those things. You reconnect everything. You tell your brain, right, I'm pissed off. Why is it good for me to be pissed off? Well, in actual fact, I'm pissed off because something I've read is really, really pissed me off, and nobody's doing anything about it, right? And that's good because it's you showing your emotion. It's like being angry. Angry is a good thing when it's used properly. You've got to remember that your emotions can be great tools to drive you forward. When you're happy, why are you happy? You're happy because you've got some great endorphins that are coming down, they're being used, right? There's a huge wad of endorphins that are coming down, and it's like, wow, this is brilliant. But you lean on these endorphins to get you up, and it's like, wow, this is why people exercise. Another thing, right, is semen retention. I won't go into it too much, but apparently semen retention is good for building up endorphin, because it's using the energy that's down there, because in your testicles, you have where the sperm is collected. You also have a lot of it's too late now for me to talk about this, but you have a lot of what's it called? Adrenaline. There you go. Adrenaline. So adrenaline is pumping through your blood, and it creates the endorphins and goes to the brain and it excites the brain. Now, you got to remember that there's a lot of energy that feeds the brain, and this is where we can be confused, with excitement. And excitement is like, well, actually, we get sort of, it's like fight or flight, So this is where, like, anxiety, well, what's anxiety? Well, anxiety is where the positive and the negative, where the bad and the good chemicals meet up with each other and they clash. And that's basically what adrenaline is. And when we get a huge rush of adrenaline, we don't know what to do because we're neither high or low. So this is why people, when they get a real good high of adrenaline, they're feeling everything. They're feeling happiness, sadness, joy, pissed off, anger. Everything's all in a huge cluster. And this is why teenagers are so fucked up when they're growing up, because they're just getting to know what their feelings are. They're like, woo, 1 minute, and oh, frick, the next, That's why they think that the world hates them. And it's okay to feel like that, because you're in fight or flight mode. You don't know what to do. And your heart's pumping, your blood's pumping. You have to think. Well, you can't think, you've got to do. So your brain stops. It's natural. Your brain stops doing what it's supposed to do, and you then take action. If you're in a good, if you're feeling good, you'll do a good thing. If you're feeling bad, you'll do a bad thing. If you're feeling angry, you'll do an angry thing. If you're pissed off, you'll do a pissed off thing. It's fine. That's how you feel as a teenager. But when you grow up and you realize, right, okay, adrenaline is a tool. I need to use all my feelings and put everything aside and, feel what I must feel first. And that is, okay, for example, let's say you're frightened of flying, okay? And you're getting on the plane. Now, you're going to feel that dry feeling in the mouth. I know I'd probably feel it because I've not flown for ages, but anyway, you'd feel the dry feeling in the mouth, right? The heart beating, the blood pumping. But you have to think, right, okay, everybody's in the same boat, right? So the first thing you do is you don't look out the window, right? Now, I haven't flown for ages, but I'm just saying, this is probably what you'd do. Next thing you'd probably do is, I don't know, you'd probably think, right, what's the best thing for me to do at this point? Well, the best thing is to acknowledge the safety announcement. It's going to be scary, but they're not saying anything scary in that. They're trying to save me. And when the plane takes off and, something's not happening right, well, maybe if you're with a friend and a friend has got a good, like I remember second time we went I was on an aeroplane and I knew the plane took off all right, and you're like, woo, we were in the air, and the plane was, but it went up and down, right? And I'm sat there, And I'm sat there kind of with the scared face on, you know? Yeah, if you can do a scared face, you'll know what a scared face is, right? Well, I was sat there with a scared face on. And I had a friend who was sat... he was sat a seat next to me. I'm going to finish this up in a minute, but he was sat a seat next to me and he said, "Is everything all right?" And I was like, "Well, not really." I said, "The plane's going up and down." I said, "I don't remember the plane going up and down. I remember the plane kind of just going smoothly. I don't remember feeling this kind of..." He said, "Oh, it's going up and down because we're going through the clouds." So I thought, okay, I'll put my mind at rest. He said to me, "When it gets out the clouds, it'll be smoother." You know, I didn't know what turbulence was, but it was a way of comforting. So kind of, instead of using big words, if you say, right, we're in the clouds now, you know, it's like being in the sea and you've got the choppy waves, you know. You've got to keep your passengers calm, so you bring it all back down to earth for them. So fight and flight, it's kind of, you know, what do you do in the most, you know, if you're frightened, you can't use fear as a tool because it's a weak, you know, it's a weak driver in the driving seat. You don't want to put a weak driver in the driving seat. Fear just has to be a passenger, and you just have to put it in the back seat, and fear will stop off somewhere and jump out. Let's hope that we feel that that's what it's going to do, because you need to take your strongest driver, your strongest person at the helm, someone who knows what they're doing. And, you know, because the strongest driver, the strongest person at the helm, they'll have their woes, but they'll be able to put them aside. And they'll chuck fear in the back seat, and he'll just tag along. And that's the way you need to be going when it's looking forward. And we need to take these and process what's being programmed. Otherwise, I mean, you look at the young now, they're mental wrecks because they don't know how to program things. They don't know how to go to other people properly and form groups. Well, here's the thing. For a lot of people who are feeling anxiety and panic attacks, you find someone else that's having the similar problems. You put them in a group together, and someone somewhere has got to be the navigator or the driver. And this is something you've got to work out. And they'll go, right, hold on. The main person that's got, you know, is the problem in the group is the person with the problem, right? They've got a problem. We need to steer them away from this problem, and we need to be able to reassure them and assure them and help them process the problem. There's that word again, process. But you also may need to have someone who's gonna give them a good kick at the ass too. Of course, it's gonna take time before you realize who that person's gonna be. But once that person starts becoming the mule, and this person's going to take action, that is a good leader. You know, and this is how this is how communities start. This is how networks are formed. The mental health industry does not want people forming networks. They want people to take drugs and be pinned to beds and all the rest of it. Right, I've said enough. But you're saying, Stephen, when's this going to come back to the business thing? When's it going to come back to building companies and stuff? Well, I have another series on this channel, amongst other series. I have too many, bloody hell. It's going to be called The Holy Cupboard. It's just going to be me sat at my desk ranting about what I choose to rant about for the week. And I think just we're relying on so much. But I get people saying, hey, we want tools. We want... The last video I did in this series, people saying, Stephen, where are the tools for driving forward? You know, we're losing this whole catch. And so, yeah. You need a path, you need a course. So, to set you the path and to set you the course, we need to talk about the tools that we're using to build the path. And then we're going to talk about the path that's been built. And then we're going to talk about the goals and moving towards the goals. So we're going to do that. And there's the whole philosophy to building the path. So this is just the NLP side of things. But we are going to get back to what we were doing in the next couple of weeks. So these 2 episodes are just based on the whole NLP analysis. Maybe if you are in a business, maybe as a business person, you may want to look at yourself and think, how am I going to lead my team today? You know, how am I going to network? And, you know, how am I going to send these people out on a project? And a good brainstorm needs to be done. Right, well, I'm out on this one, and I'll see you guys next week.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording.